Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Carlin L. Manuel, and on behalf of the University of Southern California School of Social Work and the Edward R. Roybal Institute on Aging, I would like to welcome you to the Advocates for African American Elders inaugural event. Please join me in welcoming Associate Professor, Associate Director of the USC Roybal Institute on Aging, the founder, the chair of the Advocates for African American Elders, Dr. Karen Lincoln.
Thank you and good evening. Advocates for African American Elders, or AAAE, was created in response to the persistent and growing needs of African American seniors in Los Angeles. Of Los Angeles for only 5 years, I noticed a lack of a visible, organized body that highlighted issues most relevant to our African American seniors. Our seniors were not the focus of local conversations, despite the fact that African Americans have had a powerful impact on the development of Los Angeles, from being part of the first settlers in 1781 to the present day. In fact, the person who we are recognizing this evening, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, has been identified by the Los Angeles Urban League as one of the 90 that built LA. That is, one of 90 dynamic individuals who have helped shape our fair city. After being contacted several times as the resident expert to speak to issues impacting African American seniors residents, it became more clear to me that a group like the Advocates for African American Elders was needed. The AAAE is comprised of members who have been advocates for African American seniors for decades. It is just recently, however, that we have come together to pool our resources and efforts on behalf of our seniors and their families. Advocates for African American Elders is an outreach and engagement partnership of academic, governmental, nonprofit, and community groups whose aim is to help African American seniors in Los Angeles advocate for their own health and mental health needs. How do we do this? By educating and disseminating knowledge about resources that benefit African American elders, by working with local providers to improve outreach and engagement efforts related to health and mental health treatment and services for older African American residents in Los Angeles communities. We do this by facilitating the translation of best practices to agencies serving African American elders and their families, by providing and enhancing training methods and personal and professional development to providers so that they can better serve our seniors. Why do we do this? Because our seniors have earned it and they deserve it. The AAAE membership includes community activists and leaders from an impressive array of institutions and organizations throughout Los Angeles. And now it is my pleasure to introduce them to you. Members, will you please stand when I call your name? Brian Gaines. Brian Gaines is co-chair of the AAAE and represents the Alzheimer's Association Southland chapter. Sakizi Allen. Ms. Allen is our griot and is a senior care specialist and an Alzheimer's ambassador. Jacqueline DuPont Walker. Ms. DuPont Walker represents Ward Economic Development Corporation. Cherie Ann Gordon. Ms. Gordon represents AARP, California. Martin Jones. Mr. Jones represents Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health. Sleety Jones. Mr. Jones represents Pacific Clinics. Carlin Manuel. Mr. Manuel represents the USC Roybal Institute on Aging. Mardell Reed. Ms. Reed represents the California Senior Leaders and Alliance. And finally, Carlana Child Siegel, who could not be here tonight, but she is here in spirit, represents the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health. Please join me in recognizing the founding members of Advocates for African American Elders. Thank you. And now I would like to invite Ms. Jackie DuPont Walker to the podium to introduce our very special guest and keynote speaker.
Greetings, and join me again in giving a shout out to the trailblazing members of the Advocates for African American Elders, a group I'm honored to be a part of. It is my honor to present to most and introduce to some our very special guest and keynote speaker. Congresswoman Maxine Waters has served as a United States representative from California since 1991. She currently serves in the 43rd Congressional District. Congresswoman Waters is the most senior of the 12 African American women serving in the United States Congress. When you say Maxine, no one says Maxine who. Whether from Florida, New York, Iowa, Utah, Alaska, or California, she is seen as our Congresswoman. Maxine Waters' name is synonymous with champion of the people, of women's rights, of the protection of children, and of people who are disenfranchised. Maxine Waters never shrunk from a good fight, and her fights are always for the people, a principle, an egregious act, not for herself. Once the fight is on, she can be trusted to ask the tough questions and not stop until she receives a satisfactory answer. Haven't you found that to be true? Before becoming a member of Congress, she was elected to serve in the California Assembly in 1976. While in the Assembly, she worked for the divestment of the state pension funds from any business active in South Africa that was under apartheid at that time. She helped to spearhead the Free South Africa movement and organized a local effort that was based at Ward Amy Church and, yes, a lot of USC students. She helped to pass legislation within the guidelines of the divestment campaign of the Sullivan Principles. During that period, she also was the West Coast chair for the Jesse Jackson for President movement in 1984, when most black elected officials were hesitant or afraid to hear the dream of a black man who dared to think he could be president. She spearheaded the West Coast farewell for Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm when retiring from the U.S. House of Representatives, a black woman who dared to believe that she could be President of the United States. She, along with Los Angeles Sentinel publisher Ruth Washington and First Lady of Los Angeles Ethel Bradley, founded Black Women's Forum, an advocacy network that helped create a cadre of women who are now leaders and activists throughout Southern California, a group that was so bad, no organization dared to schedule a meeting when Black Women's Forum had an event. When Assemblywoman Waters' committee was in session in Sacramento, the entire Capitol, staff and elected members alike, were tuned in on the squawk box to see who would be nailed that day. The people could trust her, so they gave her information that would help keep the government true to its goals of serving the people. She ascended to the position of Democratic Caucus Chair for the Assembly. Prior to her position in the Assembly in 1973, Maxine Waters went to work as Chief Deputy of Los Angeles City Councilman David S. Cunningham in the 10th District. The story of her filing for candidates to serve in the Assembly after that job is yet another account of triumph over business as usual, when the filing period had to be reopened to make sure that anyone who wanted to file was not shut out, including Maxine Waters. The fifth of 13 children, Congresswoman Waters was born in Kinloch, Missouri, to Remus and Velma Lee Carr Moore. She graduated from Vashon High School in St. Louis and moved later in 1961 to Los Angeles. Earlier this week, I watched with tears in my eyes as she just sneaked in quietly to say something good about a high school classmate, just because their paths had crossed. That's just the kind of person she is. Congresswoman Waters worked in a garment factory and as a telephone operator before being hired as an assistant teacher in the Head Start program in Watts in 1966. She prepared for her work at Los Angeles State College, now Cal State LA, and graduated with a degree in sociology. She has continued to walk the walk with folks whom she's now pledged to speak for in decision making. Representative Waters is married to Sidney Williams, who played professional football in the National Football League and is a former ambassador, U.S. ambassador to the Bahamas under the Clinton administration. She is a proud mother of two, Ed and Karen, and the grandmother of two geniuses. In summary, if you Google Maxine Waters, you will find more than 10 pages of hits. Before the information superhighway, the phones used to buzz. Maxine did it again, they would say. She got them straight. When the telex and fax machines were in vogue, the office machines would often run out of paper, even the liquid rolls of paper, because the people would give her information needed to keep government honest. They knew she would protect their confidentiality and get things fixed. How do I know, you might ask? I'm glad you did. I was there. I, like you, am trying to find a way to bottle up a Maxine Waters potion. Her bold, passionate, timely, visionary, cutting-edge, God-given style of unearthing truth is something we value and we need. Well, until we figure it out, let us celebrate, support, and give recognition to a champion of all the people, our champion and my mentor, Congresswoman Maxine Waters. And now I would like to invite Dr. Karen Lincoln back to the podium to officially talk to us about the legislative triumphs of Congresswoman Maxine Waters. Dr. Lincoln.
Thank you, Jackie. Alzheimer's disease affects 1 in 8 American seniors, and over 11 million people are caregivers for persons living with Alzheimer's disease or dementia. African American seniors are twice as likely as white seniors to have Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. Chronic health conditions such as high blood pressure, diabetes, are known risk factors for Alzheimer's disease and dementia, and these conditions are more prevalent among African American seniors than among other seniors. Congresswoman Waters has worked on this issue for over 3 decades and most recently introduced H.R. 2800, the Missing Alzheimer's Disease Patient Alert Program reauthorization, which helps reunite missing Alzheimer's patients with their families quickly and safely. Congresswoman Waters has also supported the Alzheimer's Caregiver Support Act, H.R. 2798, which expands training and support services. In 2011, the Congresswoman supported the local Alzheimer's Association California Southland chapter in securing $190,000 in federal funding targeted for African American programs and services. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to recognize Congresswoman Maxine Waters for her fervent commitment to families facing this insidious disease, Alzheimer's, and for her decades of championing the cause. Please join me in honoring Congresswoman Maxine Waters. Because of your untiring and steadfast commitment to our communities and your dedication to our seniors and their families, advocates for African American elders would like to recognize you with this small token of our appreciation. Thank you for your service.
You're so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome.
You recognize these, don't you? Thank you very, very much. I am so proud to receive this award from Advocates for African American Elders. And I would like to thank the USC Edward R. Roybal Institute on Aging for understanding the importance of outreach in the African American community. I would also like to say a special word of recognition for Dr. Karen Lincoln for her leadership as chair of this collaborative effort. If I may just pause for a minute and say that when I listened as I came in to the fact that there appeared not to be a central focus on seniors, and there appeared not to be the kind of leadership that is so desperately needed anywhere, all over this country, all over this world, I had to think about the services that are offered here in Los Angeles, and the more I thought about it, the more kind of scattered and a little bit disjointed. Of course, we're all aware of senior feeding programs, the lunch services, all of that, but there's a lot that we don't know about, or services that are not being offered. So I'm very pleased to hear about this effort, and I think this will go a long way toward not only the kind of outreach, but the kind of services where people are cooperating in ways that will help to ensure a decent quality of life for all of our seniors. I'd also like to thank my good friends, Byron Gaines, Director of Professional Training, Alzheimer's Association. I have to tell you about Byron. When he was appointed to the position that he's in, he came to our office and he told us what he wanted to do. We started to invite him to all of the senior centers that we would visit in my district. And not only was he there, he went a step beyond in explaining to our seniors how they could receive certain services. He went so far as to join in exercise and show all of us seniors how we could do exercises sitting in our chair. He's a real champion. I love him. He's done a great job, and I appreciate it so much. Jackie DuPont Walker, President of the Economic Development Corporation, she told you about my history, and she just said I was there, but she worked not only in my office, but for seniors through the church. I want you to know that she's not just a member of Ward AME Church. She is a diva in the AME Church all over this country, and she has worked on behalf of not only all of the church membership, but seniors in particular. And when you see what she has done in development to ensure decent quality of housing for seniors, you will understand why she is one of the founding members of this organization. She's a true leader who has done magnificent work, and I'm very pleased and honored that I had the opportunity for her to work with me. Give her a big round of applause. Sakizi Allen, elder care specialist. I was not surprised to find that she too was one of the founding members of this organization. As you know, she literally ran Inglewood, and and she made sure that the seniors that were involved in Inglewood services got everything that was coming to them. Not only did she bring in services and opportunities, she made sure that I visited not once a year, twice a year, but she had me over at least a half dozen times every year. And did we have fun? And she has basically professionalized how you do raffles. At her raffles, everybody gets something. And I dare not come to her seniors without making sure I had something to bring. And I would say, Sakizi, I don't have anything for everybody. She said, well, let me show you how you do it. If you only have so many, you do a raffle. And then the lucky ones get to win something, and everybody is happy. So thank you for teaching me about raffles, Sakizi. But to all of the founding members, let me say to you, thank you for making this your work. Thank you for caring enough to want to be involved in ways that you can make sure that our seniors, all of us, have a decent quality of life. I'm very appreciative for all of you, AARP, all of you who are working as individuals. I'm going to talk a little bit about Alzheimer's disease. Even though there's so much we could talk about as it relates to seniors, but I got very interested because obviously services were not available to our seniors in this overall community. Alzheimer's disease is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States, and it affects over 5 million American families. 1 in 8 Americans aged 65 and older suffers from Alzheimer's disease, and every 70 seconds, another person in the United States develops this disease. The Alzheimer's Association estimates that 7.7 million Americans will have Alzheimer's by the year 2030, and 11 to 16 million Americans will have the disease by the year 2050. We do not know why African Americans are more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. However, we do know that diabetes and cardiovascular diseases are significant risk factors for Alzheimer's disease, as well as other dementias. African Americans are disproportionately impacted by both diabetes and cardiovascular diseases. It is possible that behaviors that reduce the risk of diabetes and cardiovascular diseases or improve the management of these conditions could reduce the rates of Alzheimer's disease among African Americans. In any case, increasing awareness of healthy lifestyles would most certainly improve the health of people throughout our community. Although we do not know for certain what causes Alzheimer's disease or how to prevent it, we do know that Alzheimer's disease is taking a devastating toll on millions of American seniors and their families. This is why I've put Alzheimer's disease at the top of my agenda when it comes to senior citizens. One of my biggest concerns about Alzheimer's patients is their tendency to wander away from home. When Alzheimer's patients are found wandering, they often cannot tell police officers or people in the community who they are or where they live. According to the Alzheimer's Association, more than 60% of Alzheimer's patients are likely to wander. Wanderers are vulnerable to dehydration, weather conditions, traffic hazards, and individuals who prey on vulnerable seniors. Up to 50% of Alzheimer's patients who wander will become seriously injured or die if they are not found within 24 hours of their departure from home. The Missing Alzheimer's Disease Patient Alert Program is a Department of Justice program that helps local law enforcement officials quickly identify persons with Alzheimer's disease who wander and reunite them with their families. It's a small program, but it's very cost-effective. It saves time for local police officers and allows them to focus on other security concerns. And it provides priceless peace of mind to families who worry about their loved ones wandering away and getting lost. In June of 2006, I learned that the House Appropriations Committee was about to eliminate the funding for this important program. And so I offered an amendment to an appropriations bill to provide $1 million for the program in fiscal year 2007. The amendment passed on a voice vote, and the program's funding was restored. The program received the same level of funding in fiscal year 2008. It was not just the amendment. I tried to shame them. I tried to shame them, because how could you eliminate funding of such a small amount for such a serious disease and sit there and say you care about seniors? The following year, I requested that the funding for the Missing Alzheimer's Disease Patient Alert Program be doubled. On March 18, 2008, I sent a letter to leaders of the House Appropriations Committee requesting $2 million for the program in fiscal year 2009, and a bipartisan group of 32 members of Congress signed my letter. The appropriations provided $2 million for the program that year, just as I had requested. While the funding for this program has dropped back again to $1 million per year under the House opposition leadership, I have worked hard to make sure this program is not eliminated completely, and I'm working to expand it in order to allow the program to assist more families and communities. In the last Congress, I introduced the Missing Alzheimer's Disease Patient Alert Program Reauthorization Act, H.R. 2800. This bill was supported by both the Alzheimer's Association and the Alzheimer's Foundation of America, and it had 18 co-sponsors, including Congressman Ed Markey, Congressman Chris Smith, the bipartisan co-chairs of the Congressional Task Force on Alzheimer's Disease. H.R. 2800 authorized continued funding for this critical program for 6 years through fiscal year 2017. This bill passed the House of Representatives by a voice vote, thank you, on September 11th of last year. Unfortunately, the bill did not make it to the Senate floor prior to the adjournment of the 112th Congress. I am reintroducing it again this year. I'm also concerned about the family members who care for Alzheimer's patients. About 70% of people with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias live at home under the care of family and friends. Almost 11 million Americans provide unpaid care for a person with Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia. Caregivers include spouses, children, and even grandchildren. In fact, about 250,000 children ages 8 to 18 are unpaid caregivers for an individual with Alzheimer's disease or another dementia. Caregivers face a variety of challenges. Caregiving responsibilities range from assisting patients with feeding, bathing, and dressing to helping them to take their medications, managing their finances, and making legal decisions. Caregiving is extremely stressful. More than 40% of caregivers rate the emotional stress as high or very high, and about 1/3 of caregivers have symptoms of depression. That is why I've introduced Alzheimer's Caregiving Support Act, H.R. 2798. This bill authorizes grants to public and nonprofit organizations to expand training and support services for families and caregivers of patients with Alzheimer's disease. Expanding access to training and support services will improve the ability of caregivers to provide effective, compassionate care and allow more Alzheimer's patients to remain in their homes with people who love them. The bill requires the Secretary of Health and Human Services to coordinate with the Office of Minority Health and the Office of Women's Health in order to ensure that women, minorities, and medically underserved communities will benefit from the program. The bill also had 18 bipartisan co-sponsors and the support of the Alzheimer's Association and the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. Unfortunately, Congress did not consider this bill last year, and I, again, will reintroduce it this year and continue to fight for its passage for as long as it takes. I hope one day we will find a cure for Alzheimer's disease, but until that day comes, I will continue to work hard to support the needs of patients suffering from Alzheimer's disease and their families. I look forward to working with all of you and the advocates for African American elders to make certain that African American families affected by Alzheimer's disease are able to provide loving, effective, and compassionate care to their elders. In closing, let me just say this. As I look out on this audience today, I see many people who have been working for and about seniors for a long time. Now, I have a friend over there, Ernestine Wilson. She's a politician. And she has not only worked for, I think, one of our supervisors, but she has walked these precincts. She has knocked on doors. She has made sure that isolated seniors get assistance, and I want you to know, along with her and all the rest of you, I thank you for everything that you have done, and I want you to continue your work, but now you have all of USC with all that money. And all that support. And I want to tell you that I really wanted to be a social worker. And that was my dream. And you're right, I'm a social worker at heart. Because when I went into Head Start, I did social work, not in MSW. But I always knew that USC had a fine program and a strong program. And I'm so pleased to see that in this community where they reside, with all of us and those students and all of the resources, that they're going to garner those resources and help to direct those resources and that leadership toward our community. Give USC a big round of applause. And let me close by saying that politicians, elected officials, and leaders talk a lot about care and support for seniors. And they really do mean it. because when you listen to the conversations in our community, we talk about honoring our elders. We talking about the path that they had created for everyone. We talk about the sacrifices. We talk about all of that. But we've got to put the money and the resources with the talk. And that means at every level of government, despite what we have in the city and what we have in the state and the Congress of the United States, it's not enough. And we've got to make sure that we're allocating more money, not only for Alzheimer's, but there are 101 other ways. I'm worried about conservatorships and what happened to seniors under conservatorships. And I'm going to pay some special attention to that. I'm worried about the abuse of seniors and the fact that not only those who have been given legal opportunity to care, but sometimes our own relatives who are taking advantage of our seniors. I worry about housing, even though I do believe that housing is one of those areas where maybe we have done the best. Thank you, Jackie DuPont Walker. Because when I think about my mother and my grandmother and my great-grandmother and the housing that they had available to them, where, if you're old enough, I'm going to tell you something. I want to see if you remember it. They used to do something called chinking. Chinking is around the windows and the doors where the air comes in less than quality housing, and it was less than quality for all of us. You take rags and you put it in around the boards, so the cracks, so that you stop the air from coming in and under the doors. Ladies and gentlemen, that was called chinking. And also, looking at what was happening to seniors in those days when I was young, way before I ever became a senior. And the fact that we didn't have quality health care. And not only did the seniors not have health care, but for us children, they took care of us without dental care. They used to stuff cotton in our cavities with a little turpentine to keep down the pain. And then we had a little something we wore around our neck called asphyxity that they put around our necks, because the old folks knew how to make do with best they could. When I cook, I know how to cook. I know how to read recipe books. But when I make hot water cornbread, it's because I like it. And it's because they taught me how to do it. And so we come up with these lessons from some very, very strong people who taught us how to survive. And when we get in a position to take it a step further and to do more and to increase the quality of life, then we have to do that. And so I'm dedicated to the proposition that you didn't send me to office just to get another perk or to be able to go to a dinner or to be able to even be in an inauguration. You sent me there to fight. You sent me there to be your representative. I remember the lessons as a young girl from my grandmother and my great-grandmother. And I tell you, in their honor, I will always pay attention. I will always be available to and will never forget from whence I come. Thank you.
Respect of your time, we would like to open the floor for 2 questions, if that's okay with you.
We have to talk about Social Security and Medicare.
Okay, so I'm opening the floor now for 2 questions. Do we have any volunteers that would like to address the conversation with 2 questions? Can I please have you come up front? You have a question? And then we have one more if you'd like to come up and stand to the top.
My name is Dworak-Peck, and I'm with AARP, advocacy, and we'll be working with you in your office on the coming battles as we see
Yes.
with Social Security
Yes.
and Medicare.
Yes.
The question is, will you be our champion?
Let me just say this. We've had a lot of debate and discussion about Social Security and Medicare in the past few years. As many of our legislators look at the deficit and how they're going to reduce debt, and even it has entered into raising the debt ceiling debate and argument, they began to talk about how they can reduce the cost of Social Security. And they scare people and they talk about it's going to run out soon, etc. And now they're talking about how they can reduce the cost of Medicare. Now I have to say this, and I know this is non-political. It's not Democrats talking that way. That's not us. It is the conservatives and even the Tea Party folks who are targeting Social Security. And this started some time ago. When they targeted a few years ago, we fought off and we pushed them back. They had young people believing that if only the government would give them the money that they had earned, that they had saved, they could take this money and they could invest it on Wall Street. But Wall Street showed us what they did with money, didn't it? And if they invested their money, they could earn more, they could do better. They didn't need the government managing Social Security in the way that we do. But seniors did not buy that. Even most of our young people didn't buy that. And so we beat them back. And the seniors told me in no uncertain terms, all over this country, what I like about Social Security is I earned it. I can look forward to being in my checking account every month or in my mailbox. I don't have to worry about some slickster coming and tricking me out of my money. And so you stand tall and you stand strong on Social Security as we know it. And that's exactly what I and others are going to do. We're not going to support an increase in age in order to qualify for it. We're not going to support anything but Social Security as we know it, and you can count on that from me and other Democrats. The same is true with Medicare. Medicare is such an important program. We have too many seniors, and particularly African Americans, who die from preventable diseases and who have suffered in ways that I alluded to a few minutes ago before I closed out. We have people who have not had access to medicine, people who have suffered because they didn't have access to quality care, didn't have money, didn't have resources, and certainly didn't have health insurance. And so Medicare is the safety net for health care for seniors. Those of us who serve on my side of the aisle don't intend for it to be marginalized, don't intend for it to be cut, don't intend to do anything but try and get more money for Medicare, not cut it in any shape, form, or fashion. And there are folks who say, well, I hear you have a deficit and you're going to have to do something. We are, and that is bring our soldiers home who are fighting in wars they don't know, we don't need, and none of us understand, and take all of that money and put it back into the domestic agenda and make sure that we supply the resources that are necessary for Medicare. Thank you very much. Oh, okay, yes. Here you are. How you doing?
I'm fine.
Good.
My question is a lot of the healthcare industry, they don't have anything that is going to offer assistance for seniors with Alzheimer's. What are we going to do as far as trying to put those type of benefits in the plans for people that have Medicare or Medicare Advantage plans?
With the health care reform bill, Alzheimer's will be covered. As a matter of fact, any pre-existing condition will be covered under the health care reform bill, and it is not in any way excluded. Now, if you are talking about HMOs and other kinds of health plans, they all come under health care reform now. And Alzheimer's will have to be covered. What we have to pay attention to, in addition to just the medical services that they're eligible for now, is caregivers. I have friends who are taking care of both mama and daddy because both have Alzheimer's. And so we have to make sure that we have more money in the system to provide the health care for the givers of the services in the homes and in our institutions. We have to make sure that we have more resources for that. Now, When I talk about seniors, sometimes it sounds as if I'm talking about somebody else. My husband and I are seniors. We're not talking about somebody, we're talking about us. And I want you to know some of the good things about being a senior. And that is, even though, you know, some of the young people say, well, you know, you got to do what Miss Waters say. I like the discounts at the movie theaters. I like discounts anywhere, and we are quick to go up and ask for our discount. And so, you know, being a senior is not so bad, particularly when the quality of life is good. We don't mind being seniors when we have access to health care, and we have quality housing, and we have places that we can go for recreation. We can take a little vacation, go gamble a little bit in Las Vegas, and all of that. It's all right to be a senior. Thank you very much.
Okay, good evening. In no way will I be able to top the Congresswoman. She's just outstanding. Let's give her another hand. Just outstanding, outstanding. Currently, there are a number of challenging issues facing seniors and their families. One goal of the Advocates for African American Elders is to consult on a wide range of senior caregivers and agencies representing and serving seniors to identify issues that significantly impact the lives of seniors. To that end, the AAAE has identified 4 issues as our top priorities for 2013. The Affordable Care Act, the Dual Eligibles Demonstration Project, which is also known as the Medi Project, food insecurity, and the Public Safety Realignment, or AB 109. The Advocates for African American Elders aims to educate and advocate around these very important and critical issues.
All right, all right. This is the portion where we want to hear from you. So as they're setting up, let's do a quick introduction of what's about to happen. So the purpose of the AAAE is really to bring awareness, to educate, and to advocate with and on behalf of African American seniors in our community. So, this is an opportunity for us to get feedback from you all in the audience. Simply put, we're going to need your guidance and your input on how we shape this group and really go forward. It's very important.
Good evening. Well, as we've been talking throughout this evening, we all know that it is common for a person with dementia to wander and become lost, and many do so repeatedly. In fact, 6 out of 10 people with Alzheimer's disease will wander at some point during the course of the disease, and wandering can become dangerous, even life-threatening. The AAAE is pleased to announce that we have 50 Alzheimer's Association Medic Alert Safe Return Scholarships here with us today. If you know of anyone or someone that may be at risk of wandering, please visit our Alzheimer's Association table, and Brian Gaines, Director of Training at Alzheimer's Association, to learn more about the program and to also receive a scholarship package. I would also like to encourage you, for those who haven't already, to visit the other resources at the table that will speak to the available services and resources that we have to share with you this evening. And that includes mental health services and also services on how to receive free minor home repairs. And at this time, I would like to bring up Sleddy Jones to close out the program this evening. Thank you.
I'd like to take this opportunity again thank the Honorable Congresswoman Maxine Waters for her comments. And I'd like to also thank you all for coming out for this event, this inaugural event for the the Advocates for African American Elders. We're going to close now, but I'd like to invite you to stay around for the reception and again visit the resource tables. And as future activities occur and more information starts to develop, we'll make a point in keeping you informed. Thank you very much. Good evening.